We're joined today on the bridge by Aaron Dessner of the Big Red Machine and, of course, also the National. It's so good to see you again. Congratulations on the new record.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So how long do you think it's going to last is the name of the record, and it's the second for the Big Red Machine. And I know you've told the story 1,000 times, but I do love the story about how you met Justin Vernon and, sending him a track called the Big Red Machine because you're from Cincinnati, and that's what they called the Reds back in the day, right?
Yeah, I was literally born in 1976, which was the year they beat the Yankees in the World Series, and I grew up with this sort of shadow of the Big Red Machine. They declined after that, but we grew up. We used to go see, like, when Pete Rose was the manager of the Cincinnati Reds, kind of infamously, but we saw a lot of those games, including the game where he broke the Ty Cobb's hit record. And so it just kind of grew up around that era of Cincinnati. And I titled a piano sketch that I sent Justin in 2008 over email. I called it Big Red Machine, just randomly, because you have to title your, when you create a new file in software, whether it's recording software or whatever, you got to call it something. So I usually title my ideas something that means something to me. So Big Red Machine. And then he interpreted that as a human heart and wrote a song to it. And that was the beginning of our friendship and collaboration. And here we are.
So do you remember his reaction when you told him, no, it's about baseball?
I may not have told him right away because I was so moved. I mean, it's funny because his dad is an arbitrator and does a lot of stuff with Major League Baseball, I think. So he might have already known that. But Justin, he has a very esoteric way with words. So he kind of does his own thing. But yeah, it is funny how, there was a time when I was worried the Cincinnati Reds would get mad or something, but hopefully they're honored that we used the name, and, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. So, when he sent back some music to you, it didn't sound like Bon Iver. And I think just from previous interviews and your tone and talking about it, that, that intrigued you, that you thought, oh, there's more depth here, that we could play.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, like most of the world back then, 2008, I was just hearing his first record as were other people. And it was obviously a huge moment for him. And it was such a beautiful record. And you could tell, I mean, obviously this sort of voice from the heavens, but then also this weird experimental streak. But then as I got to know him and would see him, like the first time we hung out was because we were performing at Radio City Music Hall for the launch of Dark Was the Night, which was this big charity record that we had made. And Justin got up and played with David Byrne and sang in Portuguese because he didn't know Portuguese, but he had to learn it, and he did an amazing job. And then he got up and sang with Feist, and then he played with the National, and you could tell he's an outsized musician, and that's kind of a lot of people I've met from Eau Claire. There's just a really great musical tradition there, and so Justin's like interests and abilities in terms of his musical kind of mind are much wider than you would assume, maybe just hearing the first record of Bon Iver, which is amazing. But I think that was interesting with the songs that we started to write. They were quite different from Bon Iver.
So, the Big Red Machine is often credited as being you and Justin and a cast of other folks. Justin says, well, that's fine, but it's really your record.
Yeah. He's nice. I mean, it is true that I generate most of the music and kind of play the role as the pilot, and he's like the wingman or the lieutenant, and he makes a big impact, but it is more something that I've generated a lot of music, and it's kind of become an interesting outlet for me to develop ideas and to collaborate, and just I make so much music, and it's nice to have a home for it, that for the things that feel like Big Red Machine. And there is starting to be this feeling, the big old red machine, we call it. So like, there's something about the feeling in the music that feels germane to this project.
Well, you've also you've referred to the Big Red Machine as like a laboratory. or being experimental. And you've also talked about how it's about process. And I think that process is the thing that, like, listeners, myself included, understand the least. And so, there's been talk about your sketches, and basically my interpretation of this is that you're creating sort of a foundation for the song, and then other people come in and contribute on top of that. And you've spoken about melody, you've spoken about lyrics, and I guess one of the things that I'm really curious about is, when you're writing the foundations of these songs, are you thinking about what the collaborators are going to be faced with when they get it? Are you thinking about song structure? What goes into your building of a sketch?
Well, to be honest, it's kind of, I play instruments a lot, and I kind of get, it's almost like, for me, it's almost physical or very visceral, where I just, like, I'm sitting, I'll just pick up this guitar and I'll just, start playing something, because it's like, it's a habit. It's sort of it's like riding a bike or something. But then I'll find there'll be these things that pop out, like accidental fragments, and then I'll hear something in it, and I'll just I'll go towards it, and I'll start to build lay a foundation and build a building out of that, and kind of produce it, produce a track, which I call a sketch because it's song like, and it feels like a song, but I try to make music that is compelling without anyone singing to it,
which is
that
tough.
I enjoy. Yeah, it is tough, but that's kind of how I approach it. And it's, so like, a lot of the Big Red Machine songs I can enjoy, I enjoyed them before anyone sang to them, or national songs is similar, I think. And I think they set an emotional scene, and I think, but they are written in song form. And so for singers, I think they are inspiring to hear and to maybe sing to or write to. And that's just the way I've always done it, is like I feel like a ventriloquist or something, where I like try to, make music that feels like it's about something, even if it's nobody's saying anything or singing anything yet. So that's what I do. And then I've gotten in the habit of sharing those things with people I love, and seeing what they do.
I the spirit of experimentation, I was really surprised when I listened to Renegade, because in a lot of ways it's like a pop song, and then at the end here you have Justin Vernon and Taylor Swift singing different parts of the song on top of each other in harmony, and you just don't hear counterpoint in popular music very much. I mean, I think I'm a fan of it, right? And I think I've counted about 5 instances of that. So I was curious where that came from as well.
Yeah, well, that music, I wrote the music thinking about Big Red Machine, but also thinking about Taylor, because we had talked about making a song together for Big Red Machine. So that one kind of came together as, the music felt like, maybe it felt, related in some ways to Evermore or Folklore, but it felt like wilder and more free or improvised, like Big Red Machine. So it kind of was somewhere in between. And Taylor wrote this amazing song to it. And then Justin, as he does, he always surprises you. Or he'll do things where it's like, he and Taylor sing so well together, and they've never met, but there is this chemistry, and he loved the song. So he added this kind of like Time After Time style harmony line that's in there, but then he sang, and then he picks up her pre-chorus while she sings the chorus over the end. And it's just, there is this counterpoint between them, where you finally feel like this relationship, they're like speaking over each other, which is a little bit like what they did in Exile also, which is her song for Folklore that he sings on. But yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I'm caught in the middle of these 2 great artists that are like collaborating and have never met, but it's a fun place to be caught. So.
Our guest today on the bridge, Aaron Dessner of the Big Red Machine. The new album, How Long Do You Think It's Going to Last, is already out, and can't recommend it highly enough. You actually started this record right after the first one, and it stalled out a little bit, and it seems like Birch maybe was the thing that lit the fire under the project again.
Yeah, the song Birch, I was kind of, like whenever you make anything, like every record I've ever made, pretty much you hit a wall at some point. And sometimes you get through it and sometimes you don't. Hopefully you always get through it. But I was feeling a little lost with this new Big Red Machine record, and maybe half of it we had made. And I was kind of thinking about, because I do so many things and sometimes you get pulled in different directions and it's hard to like get through it. And I was feeling kind of down, and when I'm feeling down I usually write music because it makes me feel better. So I made the instrumental track for Birch, and I sent it to Justin, and he was like, yeah, if something's gonna hit him, it hits him quickly usually. And he was like, holy, you know holy crap. And he wrote the song, and there was this major moment where we were like, huh, okay, let's crack through this, and we're making a let's finish. So he wrote Birch, and later Taylor heard it and loved it so much she added harmonies to it, which are really special. And yes, it's another major song on this record.
One of the things I wanted you to just mention Anais Mitchell, because she's such a big part of this too.
Yeah, and Anais Mitchell is she's one of our favorite singers and folk. She's a folk singer from Vermont, but she has an incredible solo career, and she has a band called Bonnie Light Horseman. That's amazing. But she also wrote the Hadestown musical that I think it won like 14 Tony Awards last year, including for Best Musical. And Justin was on the original like cast recording of the Hadestown musical when it was just a play at a community theater in Vermont, I think. And so there's like we've been friends and collaborators, or just in each other's orbit for a long time. And Anais wrote and sings a few songs on this record, including the first song and the last song that she sings with Justin. And they kind of form these bookends and give, the title of the record, How Long Do You Think It's Gonna Last, is actually one of Anais's lines in the first song called Latter Days.
There's another couple of songs that feel like emotional bookends in a way in Hutch and Brycey. And I wanted to thank you for writing Hutch, because I don't think that the world got a chance to know Frightened Rabbit well enough before Scott took his own life. And you produced the last record, and we had a love affair with that band. I think a lot of stations that do what we do felt that way. And I know that the song really is about you working out your emotions about it as well. But anytime we can mention the name Scott Hutchison out loud and maybe turn somebody else onto a great songwriter, I think it's really worthwhile. On the flip side of that, Brycey is about your brother Bryce, who's also in the National, who helped you through some dark times.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I think about a lot, because when I was a teenager, I suffered from fairly serious depression, which kind of came on, and it's something that I've very aware of, and I've lost. Scott wasn't the first friend that I lost that way, so it's just something that's like you think about. And I'm lucky to have a twin brother who really picks me up, or he refuses to let me fall when he sees me in a tailspin, sort of thing. And that's how he was when we were little. And so that song Brycey, I'm kind of singing a love letter to my twin for being there and keeping me above the ground. And it's it is dark to think about how you lose people sometimes into depression, but it's also important just to speak up about it and kind of like call attention to it. And Scott, he was an incredible artist, and I think it's very hard to kind of accept what happened to him.
Well, one of his parting gifts was encouraging you to take the lead vocal on some of the tracks on this record. So, it was nice to hear you sing.
He was really, one of the last things he said to me was like, you should sing. And it was 2 weeks before he went missing, and it was special, special. I remember that. So.
Well, I have to tell you that the record is just a great piece of work. Everything you touch, right? It's just, we're big fans. Aaron Dessner of the Big Red Machine and the National, the new Big Red Machine album, How Long Do You Think It's Gonna Last, is out now. And we can't thank you enough for your time today, Aaron.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Aaron Dessner today on The Bridge.